Hi everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Intuitive Queens podcast. I'm your host, Mara Marchesi, aka the Intuition Queen. This podcast started with the intention to inspire as many people as possible. I really love listening to stories, and that's why I started to interview amazing people. And I wanted to share with everybody that it's possible to change your life. It's possible to overcome challenges, to overcome hurt. In this podcast, you will hear so many stories of people that have gone through deep struggles and major trauma, or simply overcame challenges in their life. And the intention is to inspire you, to reflect on your life, and to take action, maybe with me or maybe with one of the guests, or simply to just feel like you can relate to them and you're not alone. So, with this intention, I hope you enjoy the next guest. Hi, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Intuitive Queens. And today I have a very special guest. Her name is Lynda Drews, and she worked for IBM for about 30 years. And she's now become an author of true crime stories, but she will tell you everything in details in a moment. Hi, Lynda.
Hi, Mara.
How are you?
Good. Nice to see you again.
Nice to see you, and thank you for being on the podcast. Just for people to know, when I heard your story and the fact that you started writing basically the memoir of one of your friends, and from that, it kind of like you became an author and you started to go towards that kind of path. You almost change paths. I was very fascinated because I love when people, maybe because they make a decision or maybe because something happens, they feel like an intuition or they feel like a calling, and they decide to do something, and from that something that maybe they didn't really think it was going to be something big, they change path. So I kind of want to hear your story, how you got into this.
Okay. Yes. Well, it's interesting. I know, like you say, I worked at IBM for 30 years, but honestly, what I did is when I went to college, I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. I thought I played the piano, so I thought it would be a good job, but I got into college and I actually took the first semester of college, I took both a creative writing class and I took an introduction to computer science. And this is really a new emerging field because, I'm pretty old. This was back in the 70s. So what happened is I loved both, but I continued to take some writing things through college, but computer science was a new, like I say, new emerging field. And I was going to be the first graduate from the University of Wisconsin-La Crosse in that particular major, and I was also a woman. So this is what I was encouraged by professors. IBM came right on campus, and I was offered a number of positions through IBM that I could have taken. I chose one, and I started right off being, a woman at IBM in it was really called a systems engineering field. Now, I had always liked to write, but this was really at the time, I thought this is the right thing to do, and I did my career at IBM. But it ended up being, first technical, then I ended up being in marketing, and I had global marketing that I traveled around the world for the retail industry primarily. So I learned a lot with marketing, which was really helpful, honestly.
Right.
So yes, but during this whole time at work, I was always a runner. My husband qualified for the Olympic trials, so I got into running as well. And I've run eight marathons during my time.
Wow.
And there was a group of people. I lived in Green Bay, Wisconsin all this time. And there was a group of people that were really just really close friends, all connected through running. And we always said there wasn't anybody that had, it wasn't, race or sexual preference, sexual, orientation. It wasn't your social status, nothing. It was just like a group of people that loved to run and that's the main thing we had in common.
Mm.
And honestly, we still meet. It's still, after all these years, we started meeting back in the 70s, and we still meet every Wednesday. That was last
Oh,
night.
that's amazing.
Yeah. So during that time period, this is while I was at IBM, I met this one woman. Her name was Pamela Bullock, and she really became just a great friend, great running friend. And we would meet every day, basically to run as much as we could. Oh, quite often it was on weekends more than anything because we were both working.
Mhm.
So but during this time period, it was a terrible situation. I always said we were a wholesome group of friends. I always thought we were pretty much. A lot of us had married our high school sweethearts or college sweethearts and things like that. And Pam had married her college sweetheart, Bob. But during this time, she um, died. And it was, I was going to a half marathon to run with her that morning. She never showed up. And at the finish line, as I crossed the finish line, they told me that was dead, and she drowned in her bathtub.
Oh,
And it was a terrible situation at that time, and we were just engrossed in this situation. And it ended up being a trial of her husband that I also was in a running group. And this was something that was really an impactful time period in my life. And that then became a motivation when I retired from IBM, that I really wanted to dive deeper into what had happened to my friend and understand this. She died at, it was back in 1984, a long time again, but she was 34 as well. So she was a young woman. My children are older than Pam is now. And I really wanted to know what truly had happened and write something about this situation. So that
right.
was my
Because
motivation.
at the time, you wanted to learn more, you wanted to go deeper because at the time it wasn't clear, or there was something within you that said you needed, like, how was this curiosity coming from you? Why did you need to know more?
Well, I'd always said that I really wanted to write the story about this situation, because it was considered one of the largest, it was most heavily attended trial in Green Bay's history up to that point in time. And,
Right.
Green Bay is, it's not a huge city, but it was a pretty big, it's about 120,000 we have here. And I always thought that this was an important story to tell, but then I also really wanted to know. I was very swept up into the situation. I was young at the time, and I was prejudiced against certain ways of thinking. And as you grow older, you start to think maybe I was swayed too much by the media, my friends, and things. And is this really the truth? And so that's really was, I would say, part of the impetus was to understand that better. And truthfully, when I wrote this, I did change my mind about what I thought had happened. So it was really therapeutic in writing
Right.
this story as well. So,
So take us through what was the situation at the time for you? Because you talked about what you thought about it, some beliefs, and maybe, the people you were surrounded about from. So what was the picture of that moment, and how that changed for you, how your perspective changed for you as you started to uncover things that you then put in the book?
yes. Well, like I say, Pam was a best friend. Initially, we all thought her husband, who's Bob, was not actually responsible. We thought that could be an accident. And but during this whole situation, all sorts of things, it's a very weird case. There's carbon monoxide in a van, and an August incident earlier where their home invasion that is really unclear. There's a lot of things. There's drugging with pills at a Christmas party, and that there's all sorts of different things. So when I started pulling all that together back at that time, I really started to believe absolutely Bob is guilty of first-degree murder of my Pam. And so that's the way. But when I started to write the story, then I realized, though, you can't just be biased when you write a book. It
Mhm.
has to be true crime, has to be more that you are reporting what this is. So I took two perspectives when I wrote this. So you have to be, I had to play the part of what I felt at the time, which is I was biased, of course. And then I also have to play the role of an unbiased narrator, like a reporter. So I can have to switch back and forth between this and within the book. And that's how I had to do it, because you still had to express the way you felt. But when I became this unbiased person, that's when I started to determine, instead of wiping away all the facts that I thought were not important at the time, I started to say, what were these facts?
Mm.
And then I started to realize I was swayed by pushing away things that I didn't want to hear. And now I heard them, and then I portrayed those now in the book as well, so that I let people decide, was her death a suicide, an accident, or an intentional murder. So you have to decide that yourself as a reader as well.
Right. Okay. Okay. So I'm fascinated by this because, yes, you said you took creative writing and you were passionate about certain things, but then you had your corporate career. So, how do you get into writing a true crime story that actually is also very close to you?
Mhm.
And, how do you navigate? How do you know what to do?
Yes, it's interesting because look at, I mean, I was sort of technical, but I was also marketing. So that was, I said, helpful. When I was writing, though, I mean, I can't even spell. I just met my second grade teacher the other day. And she said, Linda, yes, you never could spell. And I said, I still can't. So here I'm a writer that can't spell, but I really, I mean, I was passionate about maybe writing this story, and I had to say, how do I learn to write? And I took a number of classes. I went to a workshop on the Potomac on the river. I mean, there, and I still am in connection with a lot of those people I met there.
Right.
I took a bunch of writing classes. They were just wonderful. And I found all these new creative people that had sort of a passion to write too, like I did. So it was a whole new change in the type of people I knew. Now, it's not anybody local primarily. I'm about the only writer I know around here. So it was more that it was all these people across the world basically that I started getting connections to.
Right.
And before social media, so it was email and things, because I started writing this in 2004 when I retired. So I did learn enough to start writing, and people say, how could you have written, the first thing you ever wrote is a full-length book, instead of writing short stories or submitting things to magazines or anything. But that's what I did. I went ahead with it. And honestly, in town here, it did, I mean, Green Bay particularly, it did really well. It was in the Barnes and Noble front window for like 6 months. It
Wow.
Anne Rule, the best-selling true crime author. I always have an interesting story with that, though. She she was the best-selling. If anybody reads true crime, she was the best-selling. She's passed away since I wrote the book, though. Now, and so what happened is I'd emailed her, and she said, if you can get a traditional publisher and not self-published, I might be able to give you an endorsement. So I did get a traditional publisher, and then I sent her that, and I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear anything, and I promised my publisher that I was going to get an endorsement or something from her. So I was getting very stressed, and I sent her my copy of my galley of my book. And I finally reached her in the middle. It was like at 1 in the morning in Green Bay, but she lives in Seattle. She'd been out gardening in the dark. She came back and she talked to me, and she said she would look for my book. She said, I get so many galleys. And she went back in her room where she stuck them, and she found it. And about 2 hours later, she called me. And she said, wow, this is a really good book. She said, I'm going to definitely write you a blurb. I'll have it in time for publishing. And, she just, what she ended up saying, that it was wonderfully written, a must for true crime readers. And she wrote a huge blurb in the front of it. So I was very excited about getting that. So
Amazing.
then also, I've had since then too, Netflix and also the ID channel have made true crime segments on it. So it got really something for a first book, which gave me the passion to keep writing, right? So,
Yeah, no, that's so amazing. And I love that you did it for yourself.
mhm,
You did it for your friend.
right.
And I assume you didn't have any other um desire to, you just did it for you and just because you wanted to learn more. You had no idea this was gonna pick up in the way it did.
No. No, I truly did not. And what's so interesting now, though, too, is this. Okay, so I wrote that book, then I did write two fictions, and then my current book that is really doing very well, it's a nonfiction again. It has brought to life this first book again. I cannot tell you, it sells just tons again, and I'm doing tons of book clubs again on it. So I'm bringing Pam's situation and story and her voice and the loss of my friend to many, many more people now, because of continuing on this path of writing. So, and I'm pretty, like I say, pretty old that I'm writing. Most people are retired at my age are just doing grandchildren and traveling, and things. Well, I keep writing. So,
No, I love this. So you wrote the first book and okay, so you have your piece. Okay, you uncovered a few things. You publish it because obviously now you wrote it, so it makes sense to publish it. You have this great endorsement from this person and all of that. What was your thinking at that point? Were you like, okay, so I've done what I needed to do, book is out, whoever wants to buy it can buy it, I'll go back to do my thing?
yeah. Well, initially that first one, because I did marketing through IBM though as well, I did try to do some marketing on that myself. I traveled that first book because there's a target audience of both true crime writers and also people who like to run, because this is about a close-knit running community.
Right.
So I did contact as many runners groups around the country as I could. And most of them would invite me. So I traveled all over the US personally on my own, doing this, speaking at things, speaking in before they have the Bellin Run in Green Bay, though. It's a big, but it was like the largest 10K in the whole country at one point. They let me speak on the stage there before the run, and all sorts of stuff that I've been doing. I did this for promotion for that book. So you do have all this whirlwind of stuff that you're doing yourself. And then at the end, it dies out. So now you say, okay, is that a one and only? Is that what I want to do? And I really thought I really did want to write, but I didn't know. I thought fiction that I should try. And, you always say you should maybe do what you maybe know a bit. So my next book was, we have a place up in Door County, Wisconsin. If people don't know Wisconsin, it's shaped like a thumb, hand with a thumb like here. And this is the peninsula of Door County is right here. And we have a place up here, and they call it the Cape Cod of Wisconsin. So it's
Okay.
beautiful. There's like,
My viewers are, there are a lot of Americans, so I'm pretty sure there are some people that know exactly. Maybe they are from Wisconsin, or maybe they're around it, but so they know
yeah,
what you're talking about. And for the ones that don't know, go check them up. And if you
yeah,
go to
right.
Wisconsin, have a look at
Yeah, because it's like
it.
the Lake Michigan is all around the thumb, and there's like 10 lighthouses, and it's just really a beautiful area. So I decided, why not write a story that takes place there? But I made it a detective story with a woman, and she was a runner, of course. And I did this, and it did quite well again regionally because of that, because of the Wisconsin connection to that. But my heart just, I don't know, it just wasn't the same. I can't find an
Mhm.
audience as well with that kind of book. Then I wrote another fiction book, and this was about an international women's woman with, because that's my background, right? I traveled internationally, and it was an international woman's like mystery again, in Japan and the US, and I traveled a lot to Japan for work. So I wrote that book as well. Again, it was harder to find an audience. And so then the fourth book, that's when I kept going though. And my fourth book, I thought back to my first book, and I said, what really gave me satisfaction in the writing primarily was writing something that would attract a group of people that could care enough about it. And I start from a community feel, and that's what I did. So I went back and found my fourth book, which was The Maiden, the Socialite, and It's the Brave Woman Behind Green Bay's Scandalous Minahan Trials. And I uncovered the story of two women from the early 1900s that were abused by the top doctor in Green Bay. And I uncovered this story that nobody ever heard. And this one is doing very well. So that was the one I did. And I went back to my roots, let's call it, in my writing, and came back to writing something that's focused here. And I just did 2 book talks, one last night, one the day before, with hundreds of people at them. They're just, people like this book. So that's
Amazing.
what happened.
I love this because, like, I always talk about, because one of the questions that I get asked a lot is how you find your purpose. I get to work with a lot of my clients are often trying to figure out what else they could do that is more meaningful than what they're doing. Because I guess even for you, maybe you loved your corporate career, but I guess, there's always that part of you that says, I want to do something else. I want to do more. I know that was for me because I moved around a lot of different fields, and I ended up doing something that I was good at, but that wasn't necessarily something that I loved doing. And so when I figure out that coaching and being a healer and all of the things that I do actually was what I wanted to do, I went for it. I started studying, but it took me time to get to have enough clients and all of that. And I get to work with a lot of people that are in the same situation, and maybe they hate their job, but it's very difficult to figure out. And one of the things that I say to them is try to figure out or remember what were those things that you used to love. Because a lot of us, when we get back to finding what we actually love doing and our purpose or whatever that is, oftentimes it's related to something that we maybe started doing before we actually got into corporate, whatever other way we went into. And I love that you talked about taking classes at the time, and you were already kind of set into wanting to be in the creative field and loving to write. But then you ended up doing something different because, as you said at the beginning, you did the right thing.
Yes, it is really true. I always think back to those first classes. It sounds weird. Before I went to lacrosse, I just took one semester at Valparaiso in Indiana. Anyway, I took a creative writing class there. They didn't really make you do like punctuation and all that. You could just really just write. And I wrote some when I look back at them, I think, wow, I did that back then. And then when I got to lacrosse, I transferred there for my husband that I ended up marrying. I'm still married to the same man since 50 years now. It's pretty
Amazing.
good. Like we say,
Congratulations.
my high school sweetheart, I transferred school for him. But when I took the class in Green Bay, at lacrosse, and it was on English because I transferred, they gave me the creative writing class at Valpo had given me like, A plus, let's call it, in my writing there. And then I got here and I got like a D, and I thought, oh my gosh, what's going on? And I went and talked to the professor and I explained this and what I'd done. He said, this was a transfer class. And he said, you don't even have to come to class anymore, Lynda. I'm just going to give you an A. And he understood what I was doing, and he was trying to correct me like I would, so I don't know, I can't explain it. So I got an A in English and never had to go to class at lacrosse in the end there, which was very weird. But so here is this impetus. I can't say I like this feel of being able to be creative, but when you're at IBM, you're led a certain direction. And so truly, when I did retire, it's like this creative side of me came out again. And that's really, I changed my life this way. And you can tell I'm passionate about it.
Oh
Probably more
yeah.
than I was about my work at IBM, which is weird. My kids always say they like to tell people their mother is an author rather than their mother ever worked at IBM. So
Oh
they
yeah.
think
Oh yeah.
cooler,
It's way
So,
cooler. But it feels to me like your soul allowed you to go into the path that was probably, even for a woman of your time and the times, you talk about the 70s being one of the first women doing certain things, you kind of went to, okay, so this is the right thing to do in order for me to get all my ducks in a row. And then as you finished it, your soul was like, okay, now let's go back to what we actually are meant to be doing here.
yes. And it's weird. I'm like, I can't wait to write, it's like I always do. And then like at this stage, I'm like, most of my friends are not doing this. They think I'm still working, well, I don't consider it necessarily work, but for this current book, I'm doing walking tours, in the neighborhood when my book talk, happened. I've got like 20 walking tours. I lead them myself, and they're sold out. And the minute I put them up on Eventbrite, and
Oh, that's
and
fantastic.
so I'm doing that, and now I'm teaching classes up at, they call it right on Door County. Remember Door County I mentioned, it's a creative area, and they have art and you know the added literature as an art up there. So they have a whole new facility there, and I teach classes now there. And so it's sort of like a new tangents of my life that have come from this that I never would have done otherwise. So, yeah.
That's fantastic. And there's another thing that I would like you to talk about, because you kept saying, I'm old, I retired a long time ago. And I love this about you because oftentimes I hear people like, oh, I'm too old, I'm too this, I'm too that. And for me, it's like you're never too anything. When it's the right time and when you are in the right moment, whatever needs to come to you will come to you. And you can be 60 and start over again. You can be 80 and start decided to study something, because oftentimes people think, oh, I'm doing this for that. And for me, it's like, do it for you, for your own pleasure, and then maybe things will happen. And that's what you did. So would you talk to us a little bit about maybe your transition from leaving, retiring, so what it meant for you retiring, how you felt, and how this came across, and even what's going on around you, because I guess that women of your age are not doing, like you said, like are not doing what you're doing, and they're probably home, taking care of the grandkids if they have grandkids, or just enjoying their life as it is.
Right. Yes. Basically, and when I retired from IBM, I retired the first day I could. I retired at 30 years. I started at 21 and I retired at 51. So I did retire pretty young.
Yeah.
So I retired at 51, and then I thought, oh, maybe I'll be a consultant still you know, for IBM, because I knew the retail industry so well and things. And I thought, I got out of it and I thought, I don't even want to go back to that now. I just am not interested. So that's why I say it was really a whole change. So the writing started to just, and it took me a lot of years. I retired in 2004. First book did not come out till 2009. So
Right.
look at how long it took me. But of course, I'm changing my career totally. So that's what it was. And it was like it's sort of a freedom type of thing that you think there's no deadlines. It's just myself,
Mm-hmm.
I can do this. If it takes me 10 years to write it, what's the difference? It's an older story. It didn't make any difference. So it could be what it was. And it did take that long, but it was I never thought about trying to go back to IBM and do that kind of thing again. A lot of my friends did when they left. They did go back and do a lot of consulting or even join another company afterwards and things like that. And I thought, no, I want to do something different. And that's what I started to do. So I don't know if that's what you wanted. I don't know.
No, I think it's amazing. And yes, you did retire very early. And I think, like when you're 51, there's always something else that you might want to do. And you feel like, there is too much time and you have to fill the time. I'm curious about the reaction of the people around you. Did you have everybody being like, oh my God, this is amazing? Or did you have someone saying, why are you doing this? What are you doing? You should be just, I don't know, enjoying your life and do something else.
No, I would say, honestly, my friends were really supportive. They're actually very excited about it. They, they help push my career. They let other people know. They recommend things all the time. I think they like it too, that I have engaged in this, but they also think, well, here, they think probably you do too much, probably, right?
Right.
Because like I say, I still write and I run and I teach classes and I do my grandchildren. I'm a big bridge player. I there's a lot of things I do in my life, and when we travel, I mean, we do all those things, and I've just added that one dimension that most of my friends don't have, which actually takes up a lot of my time though. So, but
Yeah.
I like that. But I also read just tons. So I still have to read all the time because you're always looking for how other people write things and how they portray things that will really, it's always like your further education for your own writing is how other people write.
Yeah.
So that's a really big deal for me is to read lots. So, but my friends have been very supportive. So.
I love this. I love this so much because I think, like I don't think age means anything. I think that if you have that kind of, I feel like you also have that kind of spirit that wants, it's very curious and wants to do things, and you find your own outlet and it gives you joy, and it doesn't matter. And I think that the more you fulfill yourself in that kind of way, the more you give yourself joy, the more you feel also physically better as you move on in your life, because you're not, like the fact that you're reading, your mind keeps going, and your body keeps going because you're running and because you're traveling for your things, and you know and so your body, your spirit, your mind is active, and so is your body then, and you continue to go that way.
Mhm. What's interesting, the way I do this too, is let's say I'm writing something. I can always put my words and anything I've written, I have it, I can convert it real easy to MP3, and then I can put it onto something. And when I'm doing a run or walk or whatever, I can listen to what I've written.
Mhm.
And then I keep taking notes as I walk. So it gives me incentive to get out there to walk because I hear it differently than seeing it on a piece of paper. So it actually makes me exercise more because I want to
I
hear.
love it.
And I, like I say, I hear it differently, and I have a little recorder. It sounds weird, and I say all these things I'm going to change. I try to do it, just putting notes in that, but it's easier just to use a little recorder. I come back and I make all these changes, and it makes my writing way better. So,
I love it. It's just a different way of doing things, and it's your
right.
own personal way, and it's so amazing. When you were working in corporate, what were you doing that was creative for you? Did you have the time? Were you doing different things, or you kind of focus on that, and then your creative juice came back when you retired?
Well, I mean, I was really a big, well, knitting. It sounds weird, but I loved to knit, and I would design things myself and make tons of sweaters and all that. So I was creative that way but that's more, just like I say, it's an artwork that way. And the other thing though, in my corporate job, because I was in charge of primarily the retail industry, I was in charge of understanding solutions that we could be selling into retail. So what I would do is I would understand what all these different retailers are doing, let's say at the store level. Back then, you know, people weren't even scanning things and all sorts of stuff. So I would try to understand all this and then come up with solutions, bringing software services and technology together to become a solution for a retailer rather than just selling separate things. So we put an industry spin. So I think that was quite creative, actually.
Oh yeah.
I was using a creative thought process there. Then I'd also have to I'd always come up with things that anybody's doing in the world, and I'd create all sorts of presentations and things that I would be giving at conferences and global conferences and things on what people are doing for trends and all that kind of thing, and making other people try to think creatively out of the box as well. So that's the kind of stuff I would do. So it wasn't like just technology, you know, at
Yeah,
IBM.
it was more like your personality kind of came through in different kind of ways until then you actually allow it to just be full on. Okay, Lynda, it's amazing. Before we wrap up, there are two things that I want to ask you. First of all, for anybody that might feel the same desire, either to write or to do something else, either during their corporate career or when they finish, what would be your advice for them?
Well, I guess the thing is, most people say they might want to do something, but I guess the big thing is that you actually start to do it. You know, in writing, for instance, when I teach these classes here, it's on how do you do research, but then the big thing, as I say, is how do you take the research you've done and actually it's hard. The hardest thing is to quit researching and to start writing. And because people want to research the rest of their life and they think, oh, I'm going to write this story, maybe even a family story, you know, maybe I want to leave it for somebody, but they just start researching and then they never write. So that's the big thing, is how do you know you've got to be able to quit doing one thing and move to the other. And if you're a writer, you just have to start getting something down on paper, truthfully. So that's, you know, I don't know whether that's recommendation, but that's what I tell people. And I still, when I teach this class on this research, some of the people seem to come back the next year and they still haven't written anything. It just kills me. People procrastinate, but they want to share all their, you know, what they're gathering and all this and how interesting it is. And it is. So share with other people on paper. So, so
I love
that's,
that.
yeah. So that's the one thing there. I guess it's just that, like you say, it's at a certain time in your life, it's not like you should be saying, you know, keyholed into one thing and say, you know, this is what people my age do. It's just like you think back to what were you always passionate about, and there's always time left to do those things and that you were passionate about. So you don't leave those on a shelf somewhere and never do them. So
Yes, there's always time left. I love that.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, remind us the title of the books.
Yes, the first one I wrote was called Run at Destruction, and it's called The True Fatal Love Triangle. That's the second title. Run at Destruction, True Fatal Love Triangle. It was a 3-teacher love triangle. And the second book was, I mean, here, this was the book. I know it comes in backwards, right? And then the second one is The Maid and the Socialite, and that's the brave women behind Green Bay's scandalous Minahan trials. This is the one that's doing very well right now. So
And you have a website. So tell us where we can find your books, find your tours, find
yes.
you.
Yes, I have lyndadrews.com, and it's Lynda with a Y. I always have to say the LYNDADREWS.com is my website. And then my books are all, both on Amazon. I mean, all of them are on Amazon in both Kindle and, you know, paper. And also this one was, I got a contract for audio. So it's on Audible as well.
Okay. And if someone wants to take the tour, it's on your website, so they can find the event there. Okay.
Yes, yeah, it's right now they're all sold out though. That's a problem. So there's none left.
Well, you know, keep checking out, and you know,
I'll probably put more
exactly.
out again. I know it's how much can I keep walking, right? They're 2-mile tours. So
all right, perfect. Lynda, thank you so much for being on the podcast, for sharing your story. It's amazing. I love it so much. I love your energy. And for everybody listening, watching, please go check her out, buy her books. And I guess I can say this, and if not, stop me. But maybe if you have any questions about, writing books and how you start and starting over when after you retire, I guess Lynda is the best person to have a chat with, and I'm sure she will be happy to help you.
Yeah, and I can just say too, my email is just Lynda Drews again, LYNDADREWS @gmail.com. It's really easy.
Okay.
Everything's the same, so.
All right,
Okay.
Lynda, thank you so much. And
Okay.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you. All right, great. Thanks. Bye-bye.
What an amazing episode, right? I hope you enjoyed the guest that I had today. If you want to connect, just go to the show notes and you will find all of the links available. If you want to connect with me, you can either visit my website, theintuitionqueen.com. You can find me on Instagram as The Intuition Queen. And I officially invite you to join my Facebook group, which is called Intuitive Queens Network, and you will find amazing people there, and you can connect with me even more. All right. Thank you so much for watching and listening to this. I would really appreciate it if you could leave me a review or send this to someone that you feel might need to hear what we talked about today. All right. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Ciao.